All right, so welcome back everybody. My name's Andrew and you're watching the Kelley's Country Life. And today is gonna be probably part one of a two-part cabinet install. So let me start off by saying, hey, I am a first-time homeowner builder and this is my first time ever setting cabinets. Now, I've done a lot of reading on it. I've listened to a lot of y'all's advice. So we're gonna take bits and pieces of that. So today in part one, we're pretty much going to be trying to figure out how to lay out and install our base cabinets and get everything nice and level. And let me start with saying one of the first questions I'm probably going to be asked is, did you check your floor for level? I will say I was very fortunate with the concrete crew that I hired to do my slab. They were very meticulous, even carried around a laser level with them as they were spreading out this concrete, did an excellent job. I've also spent intimate time with this house over the last many months building it, and I've watched rainwater get on this slab many times. Nowhere in this area whatsoever were there ever any puddles or holding of water. There's only 3 spots in the house where small uneven dips are that you can't even catch with the eye unless you have water on this slab, and that's back behind you in the pantry and a small spot in the bedroom. So as far as floor self-leveler goes today, no, I'm not going to be installing any of that. Any small issues that we have on leveling the cabinets, I have a feeling there's probably more in the wood itself than it is the concrete. And we're going to take care of all of that with some wooden shims and getting everything perfect. Probably one of the next and biggest questions that I'm going to get, check the comment section. You're going to see it, trust me. Why are you installing base cabinets first? Typically, most people install upper cabinets first, and there's a good reason why they do that. One, if I go to install an upper cabinet right now, these cabinets are in my way, it makes this very difficult. But if you've watched this house build, I do 99% of this work by myself, and I have to think outside of the box. I'm actually going to use these base cabinets to support something that we're going to build maybe on the next episode, could be in this one, to help me install those upper cabinets. So I need these base cabinets in first for stability and support. I can already tell you one of the next questions after that is going to be, why are you installing them on concrete? Why aren't you putting them on a floor? I am definitely against putting cabinets on floor. I have seen with my own eyes issues that's created. I'm installing what's called a floating floor. It's supposed to give. It's not glued down or anything like that. It's supposed to be able to expand and contract. When you put heavy cabinets like this on top of a floor that's not supposed to be pinned down, you run a risk of seam separation and some other issues. Plus, in my personal experience, most people tend to change a floor out down the road when you're remodeling a home before I see them change kitchen cabinets out. So I'd rather these cabinets be on the concrete itself in case we ever change that floor. And again, I do not want to pin a floating floor down. All right, so I have always heard that it's best to start with a corner cabinet. So that's what we're going to do. So I've already got this Lazy Susan corner cabinet installed and pushed against the wall as far as I can. Now the next thing that I feel like I need to check for is, are the walls correct? Are they plumb? Everything nice and level this direction? And I will go ahead and say, I already know this wall is slightly out of plumb. This is a post frame house, meaning we had to put 6x6s all the way down in the ground. This was built as a pole barn house with a shell and roof first before we ever started framing interior and exterior walls. So I was at the mercy of however the poles were holding up the roof structure, and they are slightly out of plumb that direction. So there is a gap back here behind the cabinets. Now the interior walls, I could do what I wanted with them. I just checked this one. It's nice and plumb. Everything's flush against the cabinet. We're good to go there. So what I'm going to do to take up the gap here behind these cabinets is I'm actually going to drive some wooden shims down. So I'll use the same shims that we used on doors, how many ever I need to get back behind these cabinets, and I'll find a stud we'll actually attach through and again get everything nice and level this direction. All right, so the next thing I want to do once I get a corner cabinet set is I think I want to measure and make for sure I have proper spacing for my appliances. Fortunately, all my appliances are in right now, so I can go directly over to them, get the proper measurements. I want everything fitting nice and tight. I don't like big gaps down the side of appliances, but at the same time, you have to keep in mind, you have to be able to slide these in and out for servicing and hooking up, so some gap must be left for that. Now I can also take these same wooden shims and slide underneath the bottom sides of the cabinets if I need to work them back into level as well. So this is kind of a tedious process right here. It takes a while. But ultimately, I'm trying to make sure transitions between cabinets up top are nice and smooth for my countertop to sit on. And front to back, I want these nice face frames of the cabinets to line up perfectly on each of them as I work down as well. All while keeping things plumb, level, and square out of corners. All right, so now that I have this cabinet here nice and level, everything's squared as I can get it in the corner of these walls, I'm gonna go ahead and attach it. Now, if you've watched the house build up to this point, you know I did 2x6 blocking in the wall all the way around. So now I no longer have to find a stud up and down and make sure I shoot a screw into that. That cabinet blocking that I put in completely eliminates that. So no matter where I shoot a screw in that top 5.5 inches of the cabinet right here, I'm gonna hit some solid wood. Now I went out and purchased special cabinet screws that come with a big washered head so this doesn't pull into the wood. We want to make sure that we get nice even distribution there and it actually pulls and holds the cabinet to the wall. All right, so over here on this side, again, we have that gap because this wall is out of plumb. We already knew that since we followed the 6x6 post on the original framing. So I'll put a couple of wedges in there, get them just nice and snug so whenever I shoot a screw through this back wall and through the wedges into the blocking, it won't actually pull up on the cabinet. The last thing I want to do is tighten this to the point where there's a loose gap. This cabinet lifts up off the floor because whenever I go and put a very heavy countertop on it down the road, you would actually strip, pull those screws out, pop the heads off something. Those countertops can be extremely heavy. Not to mention, I want to make sure that I don't pull this cabinet off the floor unless I need to. Then I could put shims on the floor. But that would make it very difficult to get nice and level with this cabinet beside it. All right, so here's where things get interesting. So now that this cabinet over here is secured, this one is loose, I need to get everything nice and square to the other cabinet, but very important, I have to get everything nice and level, again, for that countertop to sit on. So I'm gonna start running my level across, using it as a straight edge and see if I see any gaps. And it just so happens I do see probably a 32nd of an inch on this cabinet that needs to come up, and our face frames don't line up. So what you can see here is this face frame is actually out this direction, plus I need to close them up in that direction. So how I'm going to start is working this cabinet back toward the wall. I can always put a shim underneath the bottom side if I need to. We'll put the shims on the back side since we have that gap there, tighten everything up, and then I'll show you how I'm going to go inside of the cabinets, pre-drill, and actually attach the face frames together as well. All right, so I can already tell this cabinet is out of level this way by a little. So I'm probably gonna drive a wedge underneath, lift it up, which just so happens that's what it needs to match up with this next cabinet. And then we'll tie the two together. Now this might be a bit overboard, but since I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing, as you can see, the cabinets can actually close back here, but once the face frames touch, that's it. So I want to double check that I have these cabinets the proper distance apart. And it looks like they are. That'll also affect if this cabinet were in and out this direction, me getting my dishwasher in over here. All right, so before I go on to the next step of attaching the actual face frames, I'm gonna take the doors off so I can clamp them. That'll make this next step a whole lot easier. Plus it's 4 screws. Doesn't take much to get these doors off at all. All right, so the reason I took the door itself off was because I want to be able to check and make sure these face frames are nice and flush. Also, this is a good time to take some clamps once you get those nice and flush and hold them together nice and tight. Now we have closed that gap up. Everything is perfect from us shimming out the bottom and the back. Okay, so once I know I've got everything right where I want it, this is the time to do some final adjustments. All right, I will actually take a drill bit a little bit smaller than the size screws that I'm going to use. And I want to use a panhead or a concave type of screw. I'll show you why in just a minute. And I'm going to drill through this face frame going back this direction. We'll probably put 2 to 3 screws in to hold all this tight. And I want to barely drill into this face frame. I don't want to go all the way through because I want to make sure I get these to bite really tight. All right, so now in that hole I just drilled, I'm gonna take what's called a countersink bit and actually drill that hole out so the screw sits nice and flush in there. Now I can take my screw and go all the way through this face frame, tying the other one in. They should never shift like this now. Okay, I'm going to try to show you what we've got accomplished here now. See, these screws are nice and flush on the inside. Now there's another one. So when you do them like that, especially on the inside lip like this, you will never see them. And now when I remove these clamps, everything is nice and sturdy. So cabinets are tied together. We have shim down here leveling this cabinet. This cabinet's fine on the floor. And we are screwed to the back wall to help secure these so they can't shift. So everything is nice and level with itself. Okay, so this is our sink base cabinet right here. And I have some figuring out to do because behind it is an outlet for the dishwasher. So we're gonna have to do a cutout through the cabinet there because code says that a dishwasher plug must be readily accessible, as in it'll need to come in here and plug into an outlet instead of being behind the dishwasher. I don't understand that code because, well, you can just pull a dishwasher right out, but it is what it is. The inspector said no, move it, and this is where it's at. Now also back here we have our hot and cold water plumbing and our sink drain. So I've got this sink base as close as I can get it. We need to mark, cut some holes, and leave enough room that we can kind of shift the cabinet around a little and get those through to the inside of this cabinet. Now the other thing that I have to take into consideration here before I measure and cut all those, did I leave enough of an opening for my dishwasher? Industry standards about 24-inch opening. This one is actually like 23.5. So we're going to allow for a 24-inch opening. And what's critical is you need to make sure that opening's from your face frame, not from your cabinet walls, because you can see there's a 1/4 inch play here on the face frames themselves. So I'm going to get that distance measured out, make sure this is where it needs to be, and then we'll cut those openings and get this slid back to the wall and get it leveled up, not only to this cabinet, but this one all the way over here. So one other very important step that I forgot to mention at the beginning was before I set any of these cabinets in this area, I took a metal floor scraper, scraped the floor nice and clean to make sure there wasn't no drywall texture or any unevenness on the floor, then swept the whole area out. Just popped in my head as I was cleaning up some sawdust here before I slid this cabinet back in, but making sure your floor is nice, smooth, and clean is definitely a critical step. Otherwise, you're just fighting that with all the leveling I'm trying to do. So as you've seen, I cut the holes extra large to give myself room to move around, measure, make sure I have room for my dishwasher. Doesn't look the world's best, but it's under a kitchen sink. You'll never see it, and I can always come in here with some trim rings over the plumbing, and I can actually build me a little door or trim over where I did the cutout for the plug. But again, you're never gonna see it. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is position this cabinet to make sure I have adequate room for my dishwasher to slide in, and try to make sure things are as centered as they can be in the window opening here. I may have to give or take just a little on one of the two. Obviously, I'll have to make for sure I have the room to fit the appliance. So I'm very, very fortunate that immediately right off the bat, this cabinet is perfectly level with this one. So I don't have to do any shimming this way or the other. Now we need to make for sure. Wow, that feels absolutely perfect too. So I'm very lucky my floor does seem to be quite level. So it looks like all that I have to do now is worry about getting this cabinet back and forth against the wall and making sure it's also nice and squared up and level with this one right here. Okay, this has been another one of those things that I have spent a very long time on trying to make sure I get perfect. So I want to make for sure that this bar top that's coming out here is perfectly square with the rest of the cabinets, because whenever they go make my countertop, it is absolutely going to have a perfect elbow, a perfect 90, and I need to make for sure that the countertops mirror that. Now, when they're just out here in the middle of nowhere with no really good solid reference lines, that's difficult to make for sure that all the way down here on this corner is perfect with that corner all the way down there, and vice versa. So the best thing that I could come up with, I know I have these cabinets perfectly measured off of the wall all the way down to a 1/16 of an inch. So I put a straight edge on the face frames, then ran my T-square perfectly off of that and lined these counters up and have them perfectly squared off there. And to double check myself, I went ahead and used my handy dandy laser level here, and I threw it along the back side of the cabinet. All right, so all the cabinets are attached to the walls. All the face frames are screwed to the adjoining cabinet beside it. Everything is nice and solid. There was only one cabinet I had to put a small shim underneath. Everything else is perfectly level on the floor. So before we move on to attaching these cabinets down to the concrete, I want to show y'all something. I have my laser level set up right here. As you can see, it's shooting lines everywhere, but I already know I'm going to get questioned about self-leveling compound on the floor and the risk that I just took right here, but I want to show y'all something. It's easier to see on this piece of wood right here. All right, the laser level line is just above the top of the cabinet. Come right here. Same exact thing. Let's come to this corner right here. There it is. Right there. Let's go to this corner. You can see the point that I'm getting at here. And there it is again. Everything is absolutely dead level and perfect. All right, so the last thing I'm doing to finish up this particular episode is I just mounted some L brackets, quite thick steel, on the insides of these cabinets. And I'm about to drill down into the slab and anchor these island cabinets, or excuse me, bar top cabinets down. So if for some reason something major were to ever run into and hit, the cabinet can't shift and potentially crack the countertop. right, so now I'm going to take some of these 1/4-inch Tapcon screws that are made just for concrete and cinch this down where it can't go anywhere. All right, well, I think that's going to conclude part 1. So the base cabinets are now installed. We have everything anchored down to the concrete, perfectly level, at least as good as I can get it. I'm no professional, but I'm very happy with what I'm seeing when I shoot the laser level across this. There could be a 32nd or a 64 off. I can live with that any day of the week. So, like I said, we done started with the refrigerator cubby. We did that for a specific reason. We're gonna start working toward installing the upper cabinets in the next episode. And I will let y'all know for my regular viewers that watch daily, videos are gonna be very spotty the next few days. I have to make some trips getting lumber and materials and other things for the rest of the house, for the ceiling. Got to get ahead of this lumber increase that is already happening. We keep hearing about it. Lumber's on its way back up, so I've already placed big orders. I have to go pick up some of this stuff. It cannot be delivered, so it's really going to cut into the video time. But I'll get you the upper cabinet video out just as soon as I can, so stay tuned for part 2. Thanks for watching.